Baseball isn't just numbers, numbers, numbers.
This game is not being played on computers.
You don't do that with a bunch of statistical gimmicks.
You don't put a team together with a computer.
We're talking weighted runs created plus,
expected WOBA,
his sweet spot rate,
defensive runs above average,
average exit velocity,
barrel rate,
xFIP,
BABIP,
SIERA.
We are above replacement radio. And welcome to Above Replacement Radio. We're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well on this fine Sunday afternoon. It is Sunday, July 28th. We are 2 days removed from the trade deadline. We've had a bit of a hiatus here on ARR, but we are back to talk about some of the early, pre-deadline deals that went down, including a couple of Florida teams trading away maybe the faces of their franchise. Both of those, much like the 2017 to 18 offseason, except this time instead of Giancarlo Stanton and Evan Longoria, it's Jazz Chisholm and Randy Arozarena. There's another couple trades that happened, some of them bigger than others. But we're going to talk about some of the early stuff that happened in the days leading up to the deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. One that happened, pretty much in the middle of the night, for, whatever reason. Randy Arozarena gets traded from Tampa Bay to Seattle. You mentioned, Randy Arozarena has had quite the impression on, Tampa Bay baseball. Obviously set the postseason home runs record back in 2020 and won Rookie of the Year in 2021. But yeah, he is now a Seattle Mariner. He's been doing pretty well over the last month and a half, but was struggling a lot before then. What did you think about this deal with Randy Arozarena going to Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, the Mariners have very clearly needed offense in any sort of fashion for quite a while now. I mean, their lineup has been struggling would be putting Victor Robles has been like their savior on offense throughout the entire month of July. Just to give you some numbers here on the Mariners offense in the month of July. This doesn't do it justice, but they were slashing 215, 308, 383. So it is a positive weighted runs created plus, but hitting 215 as a team is pretty bad for a team that's competing for a division title, for a team that wants to make noise in October, not just get there. They had a 27.4% strikeout rate this month, which Randy Arozarena is probably not going to help with because he has his own strikeout issues and whatnot. But I mean, it's going to be an upgrade over what they were putting out there beforehand. Randy, even in the times that he has struggled this year, has done very well hitting against lefties. So that will be a benefit to the team. Julio Rodriguez has actually kind of been very good in the month of July. Victor Robles, like I mentioned as well. But I mean, they've given a lot of plate appearances to guys who have been struggling, quite a bit. Luke Raley, who might be either platooning with Randy or Randy might just be outright replacing him, has a 46 weighted runs created plus in this month. Dylan Moores is down to 69 in this month as well. So this will be certainly an upgrade for the Seattle Mariners. It definitely adds a lot more flair to the team as well. Randy's always been that kind of, big shining personality on the field. And I'm sure he'll be very missed in Tampa, but I think he'll be very welcomed in Seattle.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think this is just a positive addition to the Mariners because no matter who they were going to get, they were going to need bats. You get a pretty quality bat in Randy Arozarena. If you look at the overall numbers this year for Randy Arozarena, it doesn't look great. But looking at his last 33 games, he's hitting 288 with a 937 OPS. And he also has the 12th highest expected WOBA in baseball in this span out of, over 100 some odd qualifiers and whatnot. So he has the expected numbers to back it up. It's not a matter of luck that he has a 937 OPS over his last 33 games. It seems like he's kind of coming back to normal. Whereas, his first 60, 70 games, he had a sub 600 OPS, but he seems to be getting on the right track. And, the Mariners seem to notice that, and and they went out and got him. He brings, also some slugging to the lineup, where the Mariners have the third lowest slugging in baseball currently. Part of that has to do with the fact that they're just not getting hits in general. They might have like the lowest average in baseball, which contributes to that low slugging. They have the second lowest average in baseball, so that doesn't help them either. But yeah, having the third lowest slugging, I'm sure that's going to change a little bit with Randy Arozarena joining the mold as one of the guys who is a pretty premier power hitter when he is hot. And, in the last 33 games, that slugging percentage is 551. So that would rank, among the top in baseball. So yeah, he certainly is going to bring some necessary assets to a Mariners lineup that has been lacking them.
Yeah, I mean, we've known the Rays to be a team that doesn't exactly hold on to their stars for quite a while. We obviously we've seen them trade Longoria, we've seen them trade now Rosarena, David Price, like everyone that has meant something to their franchise has eventually gone. Unfortunately, Wander Franco was supposed to be the different guy, but what happened there happened there. It's interesting to say when you have a franchise that's existed since 1998, but like Rosarena is, I think one of the biggest fan favorites that the franchise has ever had. I mean, like obviously a lot of the guys you think of the 2018 with Longoria, you think of Carlos Pena, um, you think of Crawford and Price and Shields and all that, but like he was the face of the team from 2020 and onward, even if he wasn't the best player on the team. And I think last night, that video of him, or not last night, Friday night, that video of him, watching the game from the crowd and shaking hands with fans, signing autographs, doing all that. It kind of shows what the community meant to him as well. And I think it's a rare side that we don't see a lot. So it was very cool to see that from him on his way out.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, but I mean, from a Rays, I guess, fan base perspective, having a guy be a decent part of your organization for like 5 years is like having him be a significant part of your
For 15
organization for
years.
10 years in
Yeah.
a different city. Like you're just not used to that. This seems to be a regular practice where guys just get, traded out of the system before they become free agents. When Tyler Glasnow was traded this past offseason, it was not surprising in the least bit, because we knew, he's heading into a free agent year. The Rays aren't going to be able to afford him, so they're probably going to try to get something out of him. So when he was traded, it was not a surprise. And yeah, with this move, it's not like, oh wow, we're surprised that they didn't try to keep him around and extend him. Like this is kind of what the Rays do. It's sort of worked out for them, but that's kind of what they have to do. They're trying to ball on a budget here. But yeah, it's clearly, I guess it's a sign of the Rays sort of giving up on this season, or at least giving up on maximizing themselves for this season. It's gone not according to plan this year, as they've underperformed, and they're a few games out of the wild card race. So I guess they're
Mhm.
shipping off some pieces here.
Yeah, I would have to imagine the Rays are viewing this trade deadline through the context of next year, because a lot of the pieces that you knew you weren't going to have this year, you're hoping to have next year. Shane McClanahan, you certainly want to see come off the IL. Jeffrey Springs is returning on Tuesday from Tommy John surgery. Ryan Pepio got hurt this year, and hopefully he can get back and healthy next year. That was a knee injury, so not Tommy John. But you also have Drew Rasmussen. So a lot of starting pitching for them. I'm sure they're hoping will be an upgrade next year compared to this year. So I would have to imagine that in this trade deadline, they're looking at how can we, make a better lineup for next year. And, maybe Randy Arozarena would have been part of that, but you also have to, keep in mind control and other teams' needs and what they're willing to give you right now. So, um, yeah, we'll have to see what becomes with this team next year.
Yeah, exactly. And back to the factor of balling on a budget, he was um his first year arbitration value was $8.1 million. I'm sure, Ray's ownership saw sees that and it's only going to be
Like,
increasing.
yeah, what, like
So
10 to 12 million next year?
right, and it's like, okay, we only have 90 to $100 million to spend. Maybe we're not going to do it on this guy. So yeah, kind of the Rays way of going about things. But yeah, it should be nice for Seattle, for sure. Anything more before we move on to the next trade?
No.
Yeah, so yeah, speaking of other Florida teams and their outfielders, and guys who are pretty significant to their organization, at least namesake wise, Jazz Chisholm, who has been with the team since 2020, I believe, or he's been in
Yeah.
the organization since 2019. Um, from
Yes.
that
Former, yeah,
famous,
Diamondbacks legend.
yeah, famous famous trade, the famous 2019 trade of Zach Gallen and Jazz Chisholm. But yeah, Jazz Chisholm traded from Miami to the New York Yankees. What did you think about this one?
It was definitely an interesting trade. Jazz Chisholm, I think, was, in terms of namesake, one of the biggest players that people expected was going to be available at the trade deadline. And it's certainly, again, an upgrade over what the Yankees were putting out, Um, in the absence of John Carlos Stanton, allows for Aaron Judge to be a full-time DH while they put Chisholm out in the outfield with Soto, and then either some combination of Trent Grisham and Alex Verdugo. Uh, you're probably saying goodbye to either Grisham or lineup. And I think Jazz Chisholm, when healthy, can be an upgrade to that. He obviously transitioned into an outfielder from the second base position at the start of 2023, and looks like he's been an outfielder the whole time. His defense has been very good. So I mean, credit where credit is due there. Obviously, you want to get a lot more out of him offensively because he's been a league average bat since the start of 2023, 101 OPS plus. Since then, however, he might be a guy that benefits from Yankee Stadium. He has 13 home runs this year. Would have 14 if he played every game at Marlins Park. Would have 19 if he played every game at Yankee Stadium, because a lot of his fly balls, 30% of them are pulled, which is above the major league average. So that's definitely encouraging for that short porch, which is definitely very good. His defense has been very solid, despite only having been an outfielder for 2 years. He obviously made that transition from second base at the start of 2023. Lot of exciting potential for Jazz Chisholm, but he never really, other than 60 games in 2022, never really fully lived up to it in Miami.
Right. Yeah. It's always been kind of a waiting game with him, considering, he has a lot of cool attributes. He, obviously has a cool name, and also is still pretty young. But yeah, we haven't seen it all come together in one season. I will say he does bring a factor that the Yankees have been missing, in terms of the Yankees have the lowest BSR in baseball.
Mhm.
They're at negative 11.4 BSR, and they have the second least amount
That's
of
because
stolen
they
bases.
that's because they've grounded into the most double plays, I believe.
Yeah, it's partially because of that. They also have the second least amount of stolen bases, so I'm sure that has a little bit to do with that. And Jazz Chisholm has 22 stolen bases. He's on pace for well over 30. Has a pretty positive BSR also, I imagine. I forgot to take a look at that, but I believe has just general good base running numbers. His BSR this year is 3.1, which is really really solid. That's probably among some of the better players in baseball, and I imagine his extra base taken rate is pretty good as well. If we take a look at that. Yeah, 54% extra base taken rate. League averages usually in the low 40s, so he's pretty well above that. So he brings some speed on the bases, if he is going to be getting on base here. So I'm sure the Yankees took that into consideration. Like even in the rare occasion where maybe he's on the bench for the game for whatever matchup purposes and whatnot, he can come off and be a pinch runner at the very least. But obviously, he's going to be in a starting role for the most part, and bringing some speed to to a Yankees team where, they don't have too many weaknesses, but base running is probably their biggest weakness, at least on offense.
Yeah, there's definitely, in terms of offense, there's definitely a lot of adjustments that need to be made. Chisholm has a 50% ground ball rate, as he did last year as well. So that needs to be made because, if he doesn't, you basically just have another Alex Verdugo in terms of offense. But, if you want to hold out any sort of hope, 50% ground ball rate going into this season, and now it's at 45%, and he's been, an MVP caliber player this year. Jazz Chisholm does, however, do a pretty good for his 30%, which is 4% above the league average. So, you want him getting as many fly balls out into the short porch as possible. And then you mentioned, obviously, when he's not doing that, the base running should be very good. He definitely needs to up the line drive rate. It's been 16% as well over the last couple of years. So, those adjustments need to be made. But there's certainly a lot of potential here with this move.
Yeah, there surely is. He is a still a fairly young individual. Yeah, he's in his age 26 season. And I believe as we've mentioned here, he has 2 years and 2 months left of control. So the Yankees could potentially get a lot out of him, a lot of value out of him. And yeah, and last point on the Yankees base running, they're also last in extra base taken rate, which would definitely contribute to their low BSR. You, off record, you kind of talked to our group chat about who they traded to get Jazz Chisholm. Like, what was the return that the Marlins got out of this?
Yeah, so the main piece that they got was Agustin Ramirez, who was recently promoted to number 3 on the Yankees organizational prospect lists, according to Baseball America, trailing only Jason Dominguez and Spencer Jones, which are two names that you probably know of if you follow Yankees, minor leaguers to any basic level. This is an interesting move because I think it's a very good piece for the Marlins, but also from a Yankees perspective, Austin Wells has looked very good over the last few weeks, and I think that they might be really buying into the idea that he is, kind of the future centerpiece at catcher for them for the next few years. So it makes sense to move on from another catching prospect when you have one that you have a lot of faith in, especially if you're getting a guy, like Jazz Chisholm, who was going to cost a lot. Anyway, you might as well give up something that has value to the other team that also you might not be needing. In the only pushback is, you maybe could have gotten someone better than Jazz Chisholm with a guy like Agustin Ramirez, who's only 21 years old, and is already hitting well in both Double and Triple A as a catcher. Um, so it's a very up and down thing. I mean, it makes sense for the Yankees in terms of moving on from a catching prospect, but I love it for the Marlins because this is, I mean, it's a position that they've struggled mightily at offensively for a while, right? Like Jacob Stallings did not work out back there. They've had Nick Fortis back there, who's fantastic defensively, but has not really been able to hit for quite a while. So, catcher is definitely a position where the Marlins have had a rotating door for the last few years. So, they now have a guy where they can hope, like, maybe here's our guy for the future.
Yeah, it's good for them. Yeah, pretty much ever since they traded Real Muto, there's been definitely
Yeah,
a offensive hole there at that position. Yeah, I think
a void even.
yes, yeah, a void. But yeah, regarding the trade, I think the Marlins didn't necessarily get fleeced out here because they got a good prospect out of it, but the Yankees also got over 2 years of a guy who we've been talking about his potential for years and years and years. So I think it could end up working out for both sides. I think it would be silly to say that one side really got the better end. Obviously someone's going to get the better end, but we don't really know that about that quite yet. Anything more on the Jazz Chisholm
For
trade?
now. For
Yeah,
now.
for now, for
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, no, that's all I had.
So yeah, moving on. Most of these big trades have revolved around the American League East, and that continues with a trade that was entirely in the AL East. The Tampa Bay Rays once again traded one of their players, significant players. They traded Zach Eflin to the Baltimore Orioles. I know Zach Eflin is under a 3-year deal, of which he has 1.5 years left of that. What did you think about Zach Eflin going to Baltimore?
Yeah, I like this trade a lot for the Orioles. They've obviously needed pitching in the entire time that they've been, in a competitive window. And I think Zach Eflin is kind of the exact type of pitcher that they should be going for because the thing that Zach Eflin has dominated with really ever since 2020, and I even highlighted this one year as a player to watch for the Phillies, is his strikeout to walk numbers. It's been at least 4 every year since 2020. Overall, since then, it is at 6.11. He was a Cy Young, vote getter last year, 6th place, with a 7.75 strikeouts per walk. This year, it's at 6.69. The strikeouts have gone down, but the walks have stayed the same. His only real issue in terms of the things that he can control have been the home runs, but Baltimore, very famously, some of those will stay in. So that's gonna, I think, make Zach Eflin a lot more effective. If as long as he's keeping the balls in the ballpark, if he can continue to get those strikeout to walk numbers, he's gonna be a very good option for the Orioles in a playoff rotation. They just lost Kyle Bradish. Corbin Burns has been excellent. Grayrod has, taken some steps up, not necessarily the big one that we were hoping for, but he's been a very good pitcher for them. And I think this, as long as all 3 of them stay healthy, that's 3 very competitive pitchers where with that lineup, you feel very good about your ability to win a game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it comes at a good time for the Orioles. They've been struggling kind of out of the All-Star break. So it's good to get a little bit of reinforcement. And then, yeah, if they don't have Kyle Bradish, it's not necessarily the three-headed monster they were hoping for heading into the postseason. When we talked about that Burns trade, we were like, okay, they got Corbin Burns, Kyle Bradish, Grayson Rodriguez for the playoffs. That's a great 3-headed monster heading into the postseason. Whereas, Kyle Bradish isn't there right now. He got injured. Zach Eflin is probably, if you're asking Orioles fans, they're probably going to want Zach Eflin out there over like someone like Dean Kramer, who was their Game 3 starter last year, and probably would be their Game 3 guy if they had not gotten Zach Eflin. So I think it puts the Rays it puts the Orioles in a better position for the postseason. Eflin, his ERA is over 4 this year, but his expected ERA is 3.38, which is really, really good. Near 70th percentile in all of baseball. So yeah, he's someone that has been doing well over the past couple of years and should continue to do well, especially in a very pitcher-friendly ballpark like Baltimore.
And I mentioned the home runs and whatnot. The fly balls could definitely go down a bit. Last year, Zach Eflin had a 50% ground ball rate and a 22% fly ball rate. This year, those numbers are 43% ground ball rate, 28% fly ball rate. So if you can get back to last year's numbers and then also have that Baltimore neutralizer for home runs, like that would make him into a top pitcher in the league in terms of FIP and the stuff that he can control. Going back to my point about the home runs, he has allowed 14 home runs this season. Only 8 of the home runs that he has given up would have been gone if they were in Camden Yards. So you could almost cut that in half in terms of the actual home runs. But that's of course in the event where he pitches every game in Baltimore, which is not going to happen. But regardless, there's tangible evidence here that that the number of home runs he gives up, which is his number one problem, should go down at Camden Yards. And I think there's a lot of excitement regarding the prospect of that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We've seen it with certain guys already. But yeah, it's a good move, and Eflin is someone who I think like has a lot of things that he already naturally does well, and when he's in a and when he's on a team that or in an organization that knows how to utilize those things, you see the benefits. And I think we've kind of seen that with him going from the Phillies to the Rays, and it might even grow a little bit with him going from the Rays to the Orioles, because the Orioles have have done a very good job at developing their guys. Pitchers not excluded in that. So yeah, I think there's a fair amount of potential. Although they they oddly whiffed on Jack Flaherty, but that's really the
They
only
did.
individual.
Weird that, yeah, they whiffed on Jack Flaherty, but the Tigers figured him out.
Yeah, yeah. What a strange world.
Hmm.
But yeah, anything more on this Eflin deal?
No, I think that's kind of it for him. It's a very exciting deal. It's I'm excited to see what he could do on the Orioles.
Yeah, 100%. Were there any specific deals, any specific other trade deadline deals that really stuck out to you?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to go too deep into these, but the Marlins and the Diamondbacks trading AJ Puck for Devi Los Santos was interesting to me, largely because of
Hmm.
the return that Miami got. Devi Los Santos is a 21-year-old. He hit well in the Pacific Coast League, which you're supposed to hit well in the Pacific Coast League. It's a league with an 805 OPS, but he also hit well in the Diamondbacks Double A system. So that's definitely very exciting. I think it's a pretty good return for a reliever, even if it's a reliever with control. Um, Obviously the Diamondbacks lost a key piece from their postseason run last year, and Andrew to like the gambling allegations. So AJ Puck gives them another lefty option in that bullpen to go along with someone like Joe Mantiply. Anything else that stuck out to you?
Um, yeah, no, not necessarily. Although I found it not that it was a big move, but I found it funny that the Orioles and Phillies were trading with each other, considering they're both
Yeah,
like
yeah, you never see that,
obviously
right?
they're both obviously buying and obviously in buying situations, but they were like, hey, I have some pieces. It was like it was like a fantasy football trade. It's
Yeah.
just in the middle of the season, I have something you want, you have something I want. Let's do something about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Sir Anthony Dominguez for Austin Hayes. The Orioles don't really have much of a need for Austin Hayes in their lineup right now. I mean, they have, in terms of outfielders, they have Colton Cowser, who's broken out this year. Anthony Santander might hit 40 home runs. Heston Kjerstad, they're letting develop a little bit more. And then Cedric Mullins as well. And then yeah, the Phillies, they have plenty of bullpen options. Jeff Hoffman, shout out to the 518, has was an all-star this year. They just traded for Carlos Estevez. Matt Strahm was an all-star. Jose Alvarado is still very good. Gregory Soto, Orion Kerkering. Yeah, it's a trade that made sense for both sides.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And um it, I think the Phillies probably needed could have used a little bit of outfield help, even if it's off the bench. So yeah, it puts them in a little bit of a better spot. And yeah, they have one of the best bullpens in all of baseball. So yeah, letting go of a piece is not really that big of a deal.
How about us saying the Phillies have the best bullpen in all of baseball and it being absolutely true?
And Dave Dombrowski still being the
And Dave
president.
Dombrowski running it, yeah.
Yeah. Boy, yeah, what a people can change, I guess. People can change.
Even if
But
it takes 20 years.
yeah, it just be patient. I think that's the lesson from all this.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, trade deadline has been I don't think, unless Robert and Crochet go, there's not supposed to really be any huge names going. Um,
We should talk about did you see that thing that Crochet said?
I did not know.
So Garrett Crochet came out and said, I will what was it? Like, I will not if the White Sox trade me, I will not pitch in the postseason unless that team extends me before October.
That's crazy. Wow.
Which, I don't know if it's anything we've ever seen before. But I mean, if I kind of get it in terms of he's a guy that has an injury history that, they're a team that trades for him would probably be doing so on a very reactionary basis, right? I don't think anyone anticipated Garrett Crochet would be the pitcher that he has become 3 months ago, right? When he, suddenly got the opening day start. Um,
Yeah.
so and I think he wants to say like, hey, like I know that you might you might anticipate trading me in the off season and kind of just using me and abusing me and whatever. Like, show me that you're committed to me instead of just wanting me for a World Series run that might ruin me, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a fair case to be made there, especially considering all, you look at a guy like Crochet. I know he's already had the Tommy John surgery, but guys like him tend to break down, especially when the workload is a bit higher. But yeah, like he's someone who has not thrown more than 54 innings in a major league season yet. And he had not before this season. Now he's at 111, so he's on pace for 160 to 170, or maybe even close to 180. So yeah, like and I believe there's been reports that the White Sox are trying to control his workload and have him go less deep into games in order to, save him if they do end up maintaining him in the future. Because he only went on July 12th, he only threw 2 innings. July 6th, he only threw 4 innings. And his most recent start, he also only threw 4 innings. And he was capped at a 74 pitch count. So, in a normal situation, he would have been going longer. But he was taken out, and I believe there have been reports because I heard on the actually the Texas Rangers broadcast that they were talking about that. So workload has already been talked about in terms of decreasing it for Garrett Crochet. So if he does go to a team, if he does go to a new team, I think he wants to be secure in that so that he doesn't get, screwed over in future contracts with him being a potential health risk.
Yeah, the tweet from John Heyman, which was sent out on July 25th, so 3 days after we are recording this. Garrett Crochet's plan with the White Sox is to pitch the normal workload as a starter until the end of the regular season. If traded, he would need an extension to pitch in October. He won't move to the bullpen and will not take any break. He views the starter routine as the best for his health. So, yeah, I mean, the White Sox are clearly planning on being careful with him and making sure that, because I mean, if you're the White Sox, why would you do anything crazy with him at this point? I mean, you're not going anywhere. If you don't trade him now, I feel like that might just be a commitment towards either trading him in the off season or seeing what can kind of stick with him. Which I don't know if they'll be competitive again in the time that Garrett Crochet is there, but I mean, they have a clear plan of how they want to use him, and if he's traded, he doesn't get any control over who he's traded to. He doesn't really get much control over what their plan is when they trade for him, but he's giving that team like an out of, hey, just so you know, if you're trading for me, you're trading for me knowing going in, this is what I expect. And if you can't live up to that, don't be upset when I'm not pitching in October because you didn't agree to my terms that you understood were a thing when you traded for me.
Yeah, right,
And
right.
I mean, if you're a team that's pitching, and if you're a team that's has postseason ambitions, I don't see why you would trade big prospects for a guy that's not going to pitch in October. So I think you'd have to trade for him with the expectation that you are going to agree to that extension.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's very few pitchers in the league that could do this and make that statement, but based on what Crochet's been doing this year, he has the right to do that. He has, I
Mm-hmm.
believe the lowest FIP in the AL, one of the lowest FIPs in baseball, a strikeout rate over 35%. In terms of underlying numbers, he has been, or in terms of just general, performance, he's been one of the best pitchers in baseball this year, and he's still a pretty young asset. Yeah, he's only in his age 25 season. Yeah, he's looking out for himself, and he's one of the only guys. But yeah, he's one of the only guys who would be able to do this and sort of get away with it if getting away with it is the right term to say.
Yeah, and there's obviously been a lot of blowback to this. People saying like, "What about being a team player and whatnot?" And I get where people are coming from when they say that, but I think you have to remember that this is a business, and Garrett Crochet is making a business decision for himself. Where if you want to use me in whatever way that you choose to, you have to show that you are committed to me, because you could very easily overwork me and throw away all my value by making me get hurt by, because he's already on such a more significant workload than he's ever been on, right? Like he wasn't even a starter in college, if I have that right, or the last time he was a starter was in college with Tennessee, right?
Potentially, I could look at the minor league, the
Yeah.
college and minor league stats. Well, we know how quickly he came up to the White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
That was very quickly.
Yeah, he didn't even pitch in the minors.
Yeah, and at University of Tennessee, it was, his in 2019 he had 18 games and 6 games started. So even when he did start, it was sporadic. He was not
Yeah, so he
normally
so
a
he is
starter.
yeah, so I mean he is this year running on a workload that he has never done professionally or even like at much of an amateur level. So yeah, I mean I like this move from Garrett Crochet. I mean I think it's good to look out for yourself, and like you mentioned, Chris, he's one of the few guys that can actually get away with doing something like this. Uh and I mean it's good that he did it before a trade because teams that trade for him now are going to understand what they're getting themselves into. And, if they don't extend him, that looks bad on the team.
Yeah, yeah, true. And yeah, but going back to his workload in college, most innings he threw in a season in college was 65.
Yeah.
And based on what Baseball Reference has,
Which
there's no,
to be fair, the college season is much shorter anyway.
yeah, but to add to that, there's no history of him going to a summer league. So
Hmm.
I'm not,
Which even that's like heavily regulated too. So I wouldn't even count that.
yeah. But just, yeah, in terms of saying, um, you know, what his workload is over a given, 5,
Hmm.
6 month time frame. I don't think he's seen anything like this, and he's on pace for probably 170 innings if I had to guess. I could do the math, but I think that's what he's at. Because
Yeah.
he's at 111 now, and the White Sox have played a little bit
Because
over
then if
100
you're,
games.
because then if you're pitching in the postseason after throwing 170 regular season innings, like that's when you have to be putting the most effort in. It's not like you're kind of mailing it in October. No, you're dialing it up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like we see.
Anytime you look at Savant like player breakdowns on like everyone's first postseason outing, everyone's velo is up like at least a mile an hour every
Yeah,
time, every
yeah,
single time.
100%. Um, yeah, 100%. Yeah, like that's that's yeah, it's not like he's yeah, it's not like he's gonna be winding down at all. And if they go deep into a postseason, he'll end up with, 190 to 200 innings pitched on the year.
Yeah,
That's yeah, that's quite a bit, especially he averages 97 on his four-seamer. So that's a lot for someone throwing that hard too. So
yeah,
yeah, um, that is, I did not know about that quote. So it's very interesting. Yeah, that is a very interesting conversation to be had about Garrett Crochet. And yeah, something that um, people in trade negotiations might use to try and maybe give up less for him, considering,
yeah.
okay, we're gonna have to
I
commit
was
to
gonna
him even
say
more.
like there could be a team being like, listen, like I understand you want this for Garrett Crochet, but we have contract X lined up, like the paper's already written. So if we're to him, we shouldn't have to also give up prospect X.
Yeah, right,
So
exactly.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, we'll have to see what happens. There's obviously another 2.5 days to make these trades, and
Yeah, exactly. What would you put the percentage chance that Garrett Crochet gets moved?
I think it definitely goes slightly down, given this news, but I don't think it goes that down because he still has a lot of control, and a team I think could get away with signing him to one of those pre-arb, extension contracts where how much control does he have right now?
I think he's got 2 years after this.
Okay, so yeah, 2 years after this, so you could sign him to like a 5-year extension, right? Where the first two
Yeah.
years he's making, 10 to 15 mil a year, and then the next 3 years he's making like 15 to 20 mil a year, right? So that's what like a 5-year, $90 million extension or so.
Yeah, that's kind
And
of
for a
what
guy that's only been, uh, a good pitcher for for a few months that has clearly, discussed like his own injury risks, I feel like that's a deal that he takes.
Yeah, exactly. And
Who
I'm
is
pretty
his?
sure
Is he? He's not a Boris guy, is he? No, he's not.
that's what Logan Webb got. Like that's very
Yeah,
similar type of deal. Um,
yeah.
so that's a little bit of a wrench in the mix. I've if I
I
had
didn't
to
actually answer your question though. I'd say like 75% chance he gets moved.
interesting.
I still think he absolutely gets moved. The White Sox have been very suspiciously quiet. I think they're really waiting on the right offer because I mean, it's always a seller's market, but it really appears to be a seller's market this year with some of the moves that have been made regarding prospects.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of have my doubts for whatever reason, and maybe that's because I thought Crochet had more control left than he did. If he had 3 more years of control after this, I don't think he would get moved because I feel like the White Sox would feel like they had time um
Hmm.
and wanted to see what they could do with him after. But yeah, no, I mean, if he has only 2 years left after this and he's this good now, um, I feel like the White Sox should make a move on him. Um, but yeah, anything more before we get into players to highlight here?
Now let's do it.
All right, so now we will start with the lows. We end with the highs for players to highlight, starting with our um, Sunday, July 28th, 2024 edition of Slightly Alarming Statistics. He's been barreling up the ball way less.
He's not missing bats. He's not getting the ball on the ground, and people are hitting it in the air more.
It's been so bad. He is getting a
Slightly alarming.
Yeah, that's right. For my slightly alarming today, we tried to talk about higher profile guys, and I don't know if this guy exactly fits that mold. There weren't crazy expectations on this guy coming into the year, but he had a very unfortunate start to the season and hasn't really picked it up since he had the chance to. I'm talking about Noelvi Marte from the Cincinnati Reds. He, of course, recently came off of his 80-game PED suspension that he received just before the season started. And since returning from that suspension on June 27th, he's slashing 180, 180, 221, 281 for a 502 OPS, a 35 weighted runs created plus, and negative 0.7 FWAR. Among the 176 qualifiers in this span, Noel V. Marte ranks second worst in OBP, fifth worst in OPS, dead last in weighted runs created plus, and dead last in FWAR. Among the 276 hitters with at least 50 plate appearances in this span, Marte's 233 expected weighted on base average is the fifth worst, and that takes into account strikeouts, walks, and quality of contact, and he's been pretty bad in all three of those things. He has a 2.1% walk rate, a 30.5% strikeout rate in this span. That gives him the second worst walk to strikeout ratio among qualifiers at 0.07 walks per strikeout. And when Noel V. Marte has also increased his pop-up rate from 3.4% last year to 11.5% this year. That is tied for the 16th highest among the 177 hitters with at least 50 batted balls since his season debut, and that list of 177 will be cited quite a lot in this segment. The increase in pop-ups has taken from his line drives. His line drive rate has gone from 24.7% last year to 16.4% this year, so he is hitting 8% more pop-ups and 8% less line drives. That has caused his expected batting average to drop from 295 last year to just 197 this year. His average exit velocity has also gone from 91.3 miles per hour last year to just 84.8 miles per hour this year. So he's not hitting the ball as hard either. And that exit velocity is the sixth lowest on that aforementioned list of 177. Pitchers have approached him this year with a heavy dose of breaking balls. He has seen more sliders than four seamers since his return. And against those sliders, he has a 46% whiff rate. And that is the 17th highest among the 154 hitters that have seen at least 50 sliders in this span. Additionally, 57.4% of his batted balls have been either 0% or lower, or 45 degrees or higher. So that's a ground ball straight into the ground, or basically a high fly ball or a pop up that usually doesn't result in a home run. 57.4% of the time he's doing that. That is the 7th highest rate on the same list of 177. And just some more unfortunate changes for him between 2023 and 2024. His hard hit rate has gone from 46.1% to 29.5%. His sweet spot rate has gone from 27%, which is already very low, to just 23%. That is the 5th lowest in this span. His expected slugging has gone from 429 to 287. His zone contact rate has gone from 83% to 76%. His chase rate has gone from 26.8% to 37%. And lastly, his whiff rate has gone from 26.3% to 34.9%. So I mentioned Noelvi Marte's ex-WOBA being very bad, and everything that takes into consideration is pretty much exactly what has been wrong with him in this stretch. He's swinging and missing a lot more. He's swinging in general a lot more, chasing a lot more, not walking. His contact has been very bad, and for that reason, he is getting a slightly alarming.
Noelvi Marte.
Slightly alarming.
It was all the roids, bro.
It was all the that 119 OPS plus in 2023. It was the roids.
He can't do it without the roids, bro. It's all a sham. The Mariners knew about this.
Steroids confirmed adds 6 miles per hour of exit velocity.
Yeah.
Or 7 miles an hour.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So Noelvi Marte getting a slightly alarming. My slightly alarming. I don't know the last time either of us did this, but I'm doing a subject on players to highlight here. I know players to highlight isn't the official title, but this used to be a lot more common back in the 2021-2022 year. We would do subjects occasionally, but I'm doing a subject because this subject has been that bad at doing their jobs, and we've actually kind of mentioned them a little bit, but they've continued to be bad, and those are the Yankees starting pitchers. They have been really rough over the past over a month. In their last 34 starts, Yankees starters have a 6.09 ERA and 5.37 FIP. They have the worst ERA in baseball and second worst FIP in this span. They have also allowed 2 home runs per 9, which is the highest in the league in this span. Part of this has to do with a 31% fly ball rate, which is the second highest rate in baseball in this span. Also, 10.3% of their batted balls have been pulled fly balls, which is the highest rate in baseball. And 34% of their fly balls particularly have been pulled, which is the second highest rate. And also, they are allowing quite a bit of barrels. So, naturally, with the amount of fly balls they're giving up a lot of barrels. 11.3% of their batted balls have been barrels, which is the highest rate in baseball. And 5.4% of their batted balls have been pulled barrels, which is the second highest rate in baseball. So, that really explains why they have allowed 2 home runs per 9 over their last 34 starts. Breaking down individually, Carlos Rodon has had the worst of the troubles. He has a 7.94 ERA in the span and 5.65 FIP, along with 2.6 home runs per 9. Marcus Stroman has a 5.56 ERA in the span and 6.23 FIP, alongside 2.1 home runs per 9. I found that really alarming with Marcus Stroman because he is a ground ball pitcher. He should not be allowing anywhere close to 2.1 home runs per 9.
No.
But he is.
I wonder what the home run to fly ball ratio is.
Yeah, that is a good question to be had. And then Garrett Cole, although most of this has been against the Mets, he does have a 5.40 ERA and 5.52 FIP in the span and 2.3 home runs per 9. With Carlos Rodon, breaking down the batted ball data, 8.5% of Rodon's batted balls against him have been pulled barrels, which is the third highest rate out of 104 pitchers with 90 plus batted balls against. And with Garrett Cole, 6.8% of his batted balls against him have been pulled barrels, which is the sixth highest rate out of 83 pitchers with 100 plus batted balls against. So, yeah, the Yankees starting pitchers have really been giving up the long ball, and they're kind of supposed to with the amount of pulled fly balls and pulled barrels they're giving up. And that has resulted in them ultimately having the worst ERA among all starting staffs since June 15th, which is about a month and a half. So, yeah, Yankees starters are getting a
slightly alarming.
All right, so that does it for slightly alarming. And now we will go from the lows to the highs, where we're talking players or subjects that have been outperforming expectations with our Sunday, July 28, 2024 edition of How About That?
Yeah, that's right. And for my how about that today, this was not intentional, but as we were recording this, I have the 11:30 Roku game on my television. That is the Rays and the Reds at in Tampa Bay at Tropicana Field. My slightly alarming is playing in this game, and my how about that? He's not playing, but his team is. Talk across another team off the list today. Talking about Taj Bradley from the Rays, who has been dominant over the last couple of months. Since June 8th, he has a league leading 0.82 ERA and a 2.47 FIP, and that FIP ranks fifth best among the 77 qualifiers. He is also tied for third in FWAR at 1.7. Before the span, his home runs per nine was at 2.39, with a home run to fly ball ratio of 21.2%. And in this span, his home run to fly ball ratio is just 0.49, with a home run to fly ball ratio of 6.5%. So that's pretty much all the difference right there. But let's talk about why that difference has been made. It's because he has dropped the average exit velocity on his fly balls from 95.7% to 92.1%. He has also decreased his fly ball rate in general from 35.7% before the span to 25.8% in this span. So he's decreased his fly balls by 10%. He has also increased his ground ball rate quite dramatically from 32.9% before the span to 50% in this span. And arguably the biggest difference maker for him, not just in this span, but also throughout the season, has been his split fingered fastball. He threw the splitter 13.6% of the time last year as his fourth most commonly used pitch, and he's now throwing it 27.9% of the time, doubling the usage and having it as his second most used pitch. And in this span, or excuse me, before the span, his splitter had a 41.4% ground ball rate. And in the span, that ground ball rate on his splitter is up to 64.8%. Opponents this season are hitting 139 with a 131 expected batting average on his splitter and slugging 188 with a 186 expected slugging. Taj Bradley's sweet spot rate has gone from 42.8% before the span to 28.9% in this span. That is the 11th lowest among the 113 pitchers with at least 100 batted balls in this span. And also in this span, lastly, Taj Bradley's splitter has 2.2 run value per 100 since his season debut on May 10th, which means that for every 100 splitters that he throws, he is averaging a little over 2 runs prevented. And that ranks tied for 12th among the 189 pitchers that have been thrown at least 300 times in that span. So Taj Bradley, he has changed up his batted ball profile. His strikeouts and walks are still very good. He's been using that splitter a lot more efficiently, and because of that, he is getting a how about that from me.
Yeah, Taj Bradley.
How about that?
In a sea of underperformance in Tampa Bay, he has been overperforming. And yeah, for the second episode in a row, we are overlapping on the how about that. And it makes sense because it's a team we hadn't done before, and it's a guy who is performing out of his mind, like it's the same way with Brenton Doyle, who got the nod last episode. Yeah, I'll try not to repeat too much, but yeah, in his last 9 starts, 0.82 ERA, 2.47 FIP. That ERA is the lowest in baseball, and as you mentioned, that FIP is 5th lowest. Looking at expected numbers, out of 126 pitchers with 500 plus pitches thrown in the span, Taj Bradley's expected slugging is 3rd lowest, and expected batting average and expected WOBA are both the lowest. He has a 31% strikeout rate in the span, and that is 5th highest out of 77 qualifiers. Also, he has a 34% whiff rate on 2 strikes, which is the 4th highest out of 71 pitchers with 200 plus 2-strike counts. And as you mentioned, he's rocking that splitter. More than half of his strikeouts in this span have come on his splitter. And in this span, hitters are only hitting 129 and slugging a 186 off his splitter with a 33% whiff rate. Out of 167 pitches to be thrown 200 plus times in this span, the average against his splitter is 6th lowest on a single pitch type, and his slugging is the 7th lowest. And that's 186 slugging is actually outperforming the expected measures on from an offensive perspective, outperforming his expected metrics on the splitter. He has a 170 expected slugging against this splitter, which is the lowest out of 167 pitches to be thrown 200 plus times. And yeah, as you mentioned, the batted ball data is a lot better with him. This in the span. In his career before this span, his sweet spot rate against was 38%, and in this span, his sweet spot rate against is 29%. In his career before this span, his ground ball rate was 36%, and in this span, it is 50%. And in his career before this span, his barrel rate was 12.5%, and in this span, it is 5.5%, which is pretty well below average. So yeah, and that barrel rate definitely ties into the average exit velocity on fly balls. So yeah, Taj Bradley from both of us. He was a top prospect from the Rays, who's I think at one point the number one prospect in the Rays system, and he's performing like it right now in his last 9 starts. So Taj Bradley from both of us.
How about that?
All right, so that shall do it for players to highlight. Now we will get into Savant trivia. It is my turn to create a game.
Very excited. It's been a while for me.
Yeah, it's been a while that you have played the game. You made the game for last episode, but yeah, it's been 3 weeks. Yeah, this one I'm wondering, like, I don't know. This could be really hard.
Oh boy, my last one was really hard, so I deserve this.
But so it is going to be guess whose pitch arsenal.
Oh God.
But
Okay.
I am diluting it. I'm gonna try to make it a little bit easier on you. I am using only qualified pitchers from this season, and
Okay, well, of which there are like starting pitchers.
Yeah.
All right, well, there are 70.
Yeah, and
So
I'm gonna let you look at the list of qualified pitchers.
okay. I will pull up fan. So this is Savant Fangraphs trivia, really.
Yeah. So I'm because it's so open to interpretation, I will just have you be looking at all the qualified pitchers in Major League Baseball, and I guess it's multiple choice, but it's multiple choice of 70
Multiple choice,
choices.
yeah. Emphasis on multiple.
However, I think there is a thing like, okay, if this pitcher is averaging, 89 on his fastball, it's not Garrett Crochet.
Yeah.
I think we know
Okay.
that.
I'm
But
excited for this one. I think this could be fun.
yeah, I think and when you're able to look at the names, I think it'll give you a couple ideas. So
Yeah.
I feel like we could rock with this okay. But yeah, let me pull up the first pitcher on here and make sure I don't reveal anything.
All
But
right.
yeah, our first pitcher here.
Okay. All right. So four-seamer, cutter, sweeper, sinker, curveball, changeup. So this is a guy that has a lot of pitches that he throws a lot. Um, Nothing really particularly above the rest. Not a lot of velocity. I don't think it's this, but my initial reaction is Chris Bassett. Just because I know he has a lot of pitches and none that he throws a particularly lot of the time. So I don't actually think it's him. I think it's interesting that this is a guy that throws a four-seamer and a cutter the most. All right. So a sinker, a sweeper, a curveball, a changeup. He throws the changeup a lot to lefties, which leads me to believe that this has to be a right-handed starter. Just given the fact that he throws his cutter a lot to righties, that would mean that it moves out to lefties, or it moves out to righties, and the changeup would move out to, and the sinker as well would move. Well, the sinker is different, but all right. So my first initial thought is that this has to be a right-handed pitcher. Interesting that there's a less sweepers thrown, but way more plate appearances ending on it. That must mean that he throws the sweeper late in counts with 2 strikes, I presume. All right, so gonna look at the so we'll go with qualified right-handers because I'm pretty locked in on the idea that this guy has to be right-handed. So There are 49 qualifiers. George Kirby, Tanner Houck. I don't think it's Tanner Houck. Dylan Cease is not throwing 92. I don't think it's Zach Wheeler. Seth Lugo, maybe. Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan throws his fastball way more than 23%. Tyler Glasnow, no. Logan Webb, no. Sonny Gray, maybe. Sonny Gray I could see, but I don't think he throws a cutter. No, Sonny Gray throws a sweeper quite a lot. Which honestly maybe it is Sonny Gray for that reason. Chris Bassett was my initial thought. I'm gonna go with no on him. I feel like Sonny Gray would be more of a sinker baller though. I don't know. My initial two, my leader in the clubhouse is Sonny Gray. I'm not gonna lock that in right now. Luis Castillo, no. Aaron Nola, no. Bod, I don't think so. All right. Mitch Keller, Ryan Feldner, Gavin Stone, Hunter Brown, Bailey Ober. No, Bailey Ober throws his fastball a lot more. Connor Crawford throws his fastball a lot more. I'm gonna go with Sonny Gray. That's what I'm gonna lock in.
All right, Sonny Gray is correct.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, this game is I'm liking the rhythm of this game now because this is going exactly how I wanted it to, where you're deductive reasoning, you're kind of breaking it down, and I know you're one for pitch arsenals, so
I am one for pitch arsenals.
So
yeah.
I'm thinking this is gonna be fun.
There's one guy in particular that I'm really hoping you have in here because I feel like I can get it in 3 seconds.
Okay, I'm not sure. I tried to go with someone maybe you haven't necessarily highlighted or talked to me about.
Okay. All right. So then definitely not.
So yeah, we will see. We will tread these waters together.
Yeah.
So yeah, on to Arsenal number 2.
All right, sinker, curveball, four-seamer, changeup, cutter, slider. All right, so this is a sinker baller who's not afraid to throw it to any batter in particular. This guy seems to face a lot of righties, which leads me to believe it's a left-handed pitcher, and that other lineups just like stack righties against him. So in terms of lefty sinker ballers, nothing crazy in the velocity department. 92 on the four-seamer. Although the four-seamer looks very effective, only a 200 batting average against, 288 slugging. Only 1 home run allowed on 336 four-seamers. So this seems to be a ground ball pitcher kind of all around. My initial thought, I don't know if he qualifies or not, so I could be very wrong, but I wonder if this is Framber Valdez. Because, when I think of Framber Valdez, I think of obviously ground balls, and I think of not a lot of home run on particularly any pitch. I know he did spend some time in the injured list this year, so he might just not qualify entirely. It doesn't look like No, he does. He does qualify. I don't know if I'm going to lock that in yet, but that's definitely my first thought. Although I feel like maybe he throws a little harder than 92. A lot of sinker to lefties. The left-handed batters is predominantly sinker. It looks like more than 50% sinker. So left-handed starting pitchers, there's only 21 that qualify. It's not Garrett Crochet. I don't think it's Chris Sale because I think Chris Sale has thrown more than 2 sliders this year. Tarek Skubal, he definitely throws more than 92. Cole Reagans, he definitely throws his fastball more. Christopher Sanchez, there would be much less four-seamer in there if it was Christopher Sanchez, and also he's given up far less than this many home runs, so I don't think it's him. Ranger Suarez, it could be. Ranger Suarez, I think is a possibility. Shota Imanaga, he throws more fastball than anything else, so no. Yusei Kikuchi, I feel like he also throws more fastball than anything else. So I don't really think it's him. Mackenzie Gore definitely throws more fastball. Nestor Cortez, again, same thing. Max Fried is another maybe. And Another maybe for Max Fried, I would say for sure. 9 home runs seems pretty legit. Strikeouts again don't look too crazy for him. Framber is, I think, my leader in the clubhouse right now. Andrew Heaney, I think, throws more fastball. Tyler Anderson, maybe Tyler Anderson, I guess. There's a lot of maybes for this one. Patrick Corbin, no, I don't think so. Sean Manaea, probably not. Andrew Abbott, no, he throws way more fastball. Trevor Rogers, Carlos Rodon, JP Sears, Jose Quintana. All right. I think I'm down to 4, with my 4 being Ranger Suarez, Max Fried, Framber Valdez, and Tyler Anderson. But I feel like no, and it's not Tyler Anderson, because there's no way a guy with 1.03 home runs per 9 and 9.1 home run to fly ball has that many sinkers in his arsenal. So I'm thinking between Fried, Valdez, and Ranger Suarez. Let me look at that image again. There we go. All right, I got it. All right. I do feel like I'm correct in that it's a left-hander. It doesn't help that it cuts off at ex-Woba, because I feel like launch angles would confirm whether or not this is Framber Valdez. Because that is who I'm thinking more than anyone else right now. A lot of batted balls from this guy, though. A lot of batted balls. 125, 52, 58, so that's already over 200. Yeah, so that is 6, 7, 9 home runs allowed this year. Ranger Suarez, 9 home runs looks pretty legit. If I was nerdy enough, I could just straight up do like the home run per 9 calculations in my head and see if any of them add up to 9 home runs. But I feel like that takes the fun out of the game. I am gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go with Ranger Suarez. That's my final answer.
Ranger Suarez is correct.
2 for 2. Come on.
2 for 2.
Come on.
There you go.
Come on.
All right. We have deductive reason to a 2 for 2.
Yeah, I feel like at the end of the day, 92 felt a little too low for Framber, and also a four-seam fastball is his third most commonly used pitch. Felt a little too much.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we have reached. We've been correct on Sonny Gray and Ranger Suarez.
How many pitchers do you have here?
Oh, 5.
5. Okay.
So yeah, I forgot to mention that at the beginning. Yeah, we have 3 more pitchers to go. 2 for 2 so far. Yeah, let me pull up personal 3
pitcher
first.
Number 3. I like this game, and that's largely because I'm doing well.
All right, pitcher number 3.
Four-seamer, sweeper. Okay, four-seamer, sweeper, changeup, curveball, and sinker. Very interesting that this guy throws his changeup more to lefties, but his sinker much more to righties. So that's interesting. 94.6 on the four-seamer, 94.2 on the sinker as well. So 250 okay. This is odd. 39.6% on the four-seamer though. So I mean,
Yeah, this is probably one of the tougher ones because it's pretty even distribution and fairly average velocity.
It is. A lot of home runs. 12 plus 17. Okay, 19 home runs allowed this season. Very good results on the fastball considering. So, I mean, this is a guy that's pitched a lot. I mean, I think, I know you said qualified pitchers. I might bump it up to like at least like 120 innings, because this is a lot of pitches. This leads me to believe this is a guy that hasn't missed a start, that goes deep into games, because I mean 5 pitches thrown basically at least 150 times is quite staggering. To me, no triples allowed is interesting. It doesn't really do much for me in terms of eliminating people. The curveball more to lefties. Curveballs move in towards. I'm still very torn on whether this is a left-handed or a right-handed pitcher. This is if it's I don't know, the sweeper that much leans me towards righty because sweepers are I feel like more of a right-hander type of pitch than anything else. In terms of innings, I'm gonna you know what? I'm just gonna be bold and go right-handers with at least 120 innings because I feel very confident that this guy has already built up quite the workload for himself. Yeah, so I'm gonna do that, and it looks like we have 19 qualifiers here. We're looking at George Kirby, possibly, but I don't think he throws a sweeper that much. He's more of a, he's more of a changeup type guy than a sweeper type guy. Tanner Houck, no, because there'd be a splitter. Dylan Cease definitely throws harder than that. Zach Wheeler, definitely throws. Well, actually, Zach Wheeler might be. I don't think it's Zach Wheeler though. Seth Lugo, I don't think it's him. Joe Ryan throws his four seamer more. Logan Webb, there'd be more changeup, and more sinker. Logan Gilbert is possible. Corbin Burns is I don't think it's Corbin Burns. Eric Fetty, there would be more splitter. Michael King, maybe. Luis Castillo, there'd not be that much changeup, so no. Aaron Nola, I don't think he throws a sweeper. Brandon Fott, I don't think throws a sweeper. The only person that's really standing out to me right now is Logan Gilbert. Jake Irvin, no. Mitch Keller. I don't think Mitch Keller throws a sweeper. It's definitely not Cutter Crawford. I don't think it's Luis Castillo. Jose Barrios, maybe. But I don't know. I think my leader in the clubhouse right now is Logan Gilbert. I think everything lines up to be him. No one else really. I don't know. I feel like there's a reason I can eliminate everyone else with the exception of like maybe Jose Barrios, maybe Michael King, but I don't really think he throws a sinker that much. I don't know. Does Jose Barrios average 94.6? Probably not. Logan, I would if I could see like perceived velocity, I'd be able to confirm whether or not it's Gilbert. He has allowed quite a few home runs. I'm gonna go with Logan Gilbert on this one.
It was Pablo Lopez.
Oh, it was Pablo Lopez. So I was wrong on the innings then.
Yeah.
All right.
So
how many innings has he thrown? It'd be really funny if he's at like 119 and I cut it
I think
off.
it's probably right.
He's thrown 118 innings this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of on the right idea. I just set my qualifier a little too extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Logan Gilbert was not a bad guess though, I don't think.
No, definitely not.
Because does Logan Gilbert throw a sweeper?
I don't doubt it.
I'm pretty sure he does. He might throw a splitter though. That's kind of the only thing. Okay, so Logan Gilbert, very similar. I forgot that he throws a splitter, but he's four seamer 31% of the time and slider 31% of the time.
Okay, yeah.
So very close. 90. Oh, he averages 96.2. Yeah, he gets it up there a lot more. Okay.
Yeah,
All
but
right. Well,
it's hard to recognize that when you're kind of flying blind.
and Pablo Lopez was my Cy Young pick, so I should have
Well,
gotten that one.
All right.
Yeah,
So
I just got a little ambitious with the innings.
Yeah, I mean it's okay. It's the first time we're playing this.
Yeah.
On to Arsenal number 4.
All right, Arsenal number 4. Holy crap, this guy has thrown a lot. 1,006 four seamers. already this season. Slider, changeup, curveball, cutter. This has to be 228 changeups, all of them to righties. This has to be a left-handed pitcher. 149 curveballs, only 5 to lefties. Yeah, I would imagine that this is a guy that throws with his left hand. 16 home runs allowed on the four-seamer. That is quite a bit. Yeah. Wow. Slider. Wow. 1,006 four-seamers. 866 to righties. Right? Because changeups move out towards righties, in towards lefties if you're left-handed. Or no. Yeah, in towards lefties if you're left-handed. 95.4 on the velocity. A cutter that he mostly throws to righties because they move. That's kind of interesting because cutters move in towards righties and out towards lefties if you're left-handed. I'm going to go back to the left-handed well on this one because to me it's got to be a left-handed pitcher. Fangraphs, let me switch. All right, 21 qualifiers. All right, let's see. So Garrett Crochet, maybe Chris Sale. No, I think there'd be more. Well, I guess there is a lot of slider, but I don't know. Is Chris Sale pumping in it at 95 these days? I don't think Chris Sale's given up 16 home runs on four seamers. Is the only thing. There got to be a guy with a lot of home run per nine. My first thought is Yusei Kikuchi, maybe Mackenzie Gore, but probably not. Nestor Cortez, I don't think he's thrown that many pitches. Patrick Corbin feels possible. 1,006 though, that is a lot. The problem with this is that Fangraphs, for like fastball velocity on its dashboard uses Savant's like formula, so I have to like crop that out of my search because that feels like cheating.
Yeah,
40,
right.
50% fastball usage is a lot.
Yeah, I could have asked to go to Baseball Reference because they have all the qualified
Yeah.
things on
Yeah.
there. You just sort by like ERA or whatever.
Yeah. No, they do, but I'm used to Fangraphs, so I'm definitely going. I'd prefer to go there. So 16 home runs just on the four seamer alone, plus 4 on the slider, plus 1 on the cutter. And that makes for 21 home runs. So you figure this guy gives up about a home run per start, which leads me to believe that he would have a home runs per 9 over 1, assuming he's made that many starts. My leader in the clubhouse is still Yusei Kikuchi. I feel like that makes the most sense. What is his ERA this year? It is 4.75.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go with Yusei Kikuchi on this one.
You're going with Yusei Kikuchi?
Yeah.
It is Carlos Rodon.
Ah, damn. Same idea.
Yeah, I'm looking it up to make sure he's qualified because
He is.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, he is qualified.
So yeah,
close.
two for
I'm
4.
like, even if I'm getting them wrong, I'm getting like the pitcher archetype correct.
Yeah,
like,
no,
Yusei
exactly.
Kikuchi and Carlos Rodon are very similar.
That's kind of the hard part about it is like
Yeah, I would not have, to be honest, I would not have guessed Carlos Rodon has pitched enough this year, even though he's made every start. I still feel like he doesn't go. I mean, I guess Yusei Kikuchi only has 2 more innings, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, 2 for 4.
All right,
But yeah,
let's finish strong and go. Let's have a winning record here.
even if you're wrong, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You've been right on all the arm, all the whether they're righties or lefties.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be tough when you get down to like two or three options.
Mm-hmm.
All right, on to the fifth pitcher arsenal fifth and
Final
final.
one. All right. Oh boy, a guy with a knuckle curve. That's interesting. Okay. So 95.8 on the four-seamer, which he throws 37% of the time, overwhelmingly more than anything else. Immediately I'm thinking Cutter Crawford, because the four-seamer and the cutter are the two most used pitches. Although, I don't know. Cutter Crawford went a while without allowing like a ton of home runs, and then he gave up all of the home runs. But he throws a sweeper, I think. I don't think Cutter Crawford's throwing a sinker anywhere. The four seam cutter sinker is very amusing because that's literally just I refuse to throw anything but fastballs. The changeup, okay, the changeup mostly to lefties. This is a right-handed pitcher for sure. Slider as well. You really did me dirty here by cutting it off at by cutting me off at Xwoba. Although I'm seeing a big discrepancy in a lot of these pitches in average versus expected average, slugging versus expected slugging. So, I mean, like a 120-point difference in slugging versus X slugging on the fastball alone. So, that leads me to believe that this is a right-handed pitcher that has a pretty big discrepancy between ERA and FIP. So immediately, I'm just gonna go straight to the right-handers and then look at the advanced stats so I can get those ERA FIP discrepancies and see who's getting unlucky here. Pablo Lopez, it probably isn't him. Well, the top two in terms of ERA minus FIP on the unlucky side are literally Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray. So immediately the two unluckiest guys are eliminated here. So we're looking at like Ryan Feldner, which would be a really funny one, because I know not a ton about him. We're looking at Logan Webb, who I don't think it is because Logan Webb doesn't strike me as the guy to throw to lead with fastball cutter. Ryan Feldner's interesting. I don't know if I want to completely buy in on it because I feel like he throws his slider more often than not. Miles Michaelis is interesting, although honestly, Miles Michaelis is very interesting because actually no, he's not. He doesn't throw 95.8. I don't know what I'm talking about. Gosman, you would see a splitter. Glass now. I don't know. I feel like he averages more than 95.8. Cease, Eflin, Joe Ryan. Um, Joe Ryan feels possible because he does throw quite a lot of fastballs. This one's hard. I feel like this is the hardest one that I've had so far. 37% four seam. Not like, I mean, yeah. 235 knuckle curves. Who throws 235 knuckle curves? That's I feel like that should be what I focus the most on. I just don't know like who's throwing knuckle curves like that. Uh 10, 11, okay, 14 home runs allowed in you figure this guy's qualified, so he's made at least what, like 18 starts? Yeah, so I'm thinking low home run per nine, but not like crazy low. Very few strikeouts on the changeup, which is very interesting. Like the fact that this guy, I mean, I know that the sinker and changeup have been thrown relatively equal. The fact that he has barely more strikeouts on his changeup than his sinker is very interesting to me because that's much more of a strikeout pitch. 15 strikeouts on the knuckle curve. Sliders pretty much exclusively thrown to righties. This is a right-handed pitcher for sure. No extra base hits allowed on the slider, but only 32 plate appearances and 20 batted balls, 8 strikeouts. I feel like this is a guy where we're not talking about a ton of swing and miss. This might be a stretch, but I'm almost thinking like a Gavin Stone type, maybe. Um, hmm. I forgot there's a whole other page here of. Well, actually, that's this via sort by home run, right? Though. Yeah, I really don't know who this one is. And the thing about George Kirby is that he doesn't walk anybody, and oh, you cut it off at Woba, not ex Woba this time.
Yeah, that was on accident, but
Oh, okay,
I
I thought you
figured
were
it
gonna say that
wasn't.
was intentional.
No, that
I
I've
was gonna be like, oh, George Kirby, yeah. All right, George Kirby feels possible. Dylan Cease, like maybe. Dylan Cease actually seems like a guy that it could be, but I feel like 131 innings is too many for. Although maybe it's not. I don't know. Right? Dylan Cease throws a slider way more than. No, it's not Dylan Cease. Um, Zach Wheeler, probably not. I feel like he throws more. Seth Lugo, maybe Seth Lugo. Maybe it's Seth Lugo. But no, Seth Lugo is not throwing 95.8. I might just go run with George Kirby and see what happens.
all right. George Kirby, you're locking it in.
I'm gonna lock it in.
It was Hunter Brown.
It was Hunter Brown. Yeah, I should have. Yeah. He
Um,
does. He does throw a lot of fastballs.
well, so
Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
that
he is qualified. Yeah, I got too hung up on the slugging and X slug and difference on the four seamer. And
yeah, I
then
mean
yeah.
it can
Well,
be.
I
Yeah,
started out really well.
I was curious. I was curious how this game was going to turn out, and I think, I mean, I will say this, and
I'll
I'm sure
take two
you,
for five, I guess.
I'm sure you feel this when you make your own games, is you don't want it to be too hard nor too easy. So
Yeah.
I think we created a game where it's it can be difficult, but you have a path to be correct about things. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think
That was
you know,
that was honestly, I think that was my favorite game that you've made so far.
hell yeah,
I
let's
had fun with
go.
that one.
Um, yeah, so anything more before we wrap this up?
I think that's it. Sorry that Savant trivia took up like 40% of this episode.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was an intense game. Last thing I'll say, shout out to Dylan Cease, got a no-hitter against
Yeah,
Washington,
he
and
did.
he only allowed one batted ball with an expected batting average above 500, and it was 560.
Ooh,
So,
the Giannis
um,
stamp of approval on
yeah,
no hitter.
pretty true no-hitter. I think only 8 strikeouts, but very weak contact against him. Average exit
You
velocity of
could
seven.
argue, I've said this, not even Dylan Cease's best start of the year.
Um,
The Wrigley start, he should have had a perfect game.
right,
He gave
yeah,
up one base runner and it was like an infield single.
yeah, right.
And
Um, yeah, with
yeah.
Cease, only a 78 mile per hour average exit velocity against him, throughout the afternoon there in Washington. So yeah, shout out to him. Did a very good job, and got a no hitter, got an individual no hitter, which is a little bit more rare nowadays. But yeah, that shall do it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens or see what those pitch arsenals looked like, go to
Yeah.
the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. Check out all the features. We have a full playlist of all our guest interviews, which include Jeff Pass and Chris Rose, Mike Petriello, Sarah Lang's Foolish Bailey, among others. So yeah, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter at Chris_Dion, follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we are talking all the happenings of Major League Baseball once again. See you then.
This conversation is over.